Following the premiere of the reimagined fairy tale classic, performer Rachel Zegler was reportedly observed visiting a cinema to view her own feature film in a virtually vacant auditorium, illustrating the apparent lack of audience enthusiasm for the production. Rachel Zegler's professional trajectory continues to encounter obstacles. This latest setback isn't merely a harmless internet meme or social media exchange. It represents a genuine professional challenge unfolding in real time before rows upon rows of unoccupied seats in a prestigious London theatrical venue. In the aftermath of the fairy tale adaptation controversy, she appeared to be investing considerable professional capital in her theatrical debut performance in the musical Evita, presumably hoping to rehabilitate her public image. However, unfortunately for her, this venture appears to be experiencing even more significant difficulties than her previous cinematic project. Ticket purchases are declining precipitously, and one can observe the manifestation of stress in her facial expressions during media engagements. This isn't merely performance anxiety. It suggests profound professional regret. Her outspoken perspectives regarding the fairy tale adaptation continue to follow her professional reputation, persisting like an unfavorable headline that refuses to fade from public consciousness. For those who may have missed the context, Rachel is currently portraying Eva Peron in the West End revival of Evita at the renowned London Palladium. This represents a significant professional opportunity, a venue comprising 2,286 seats, associated with legendary theatrical composers Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice. The surprising development is that substantial sections of the auditorium remain completely unsold. Reports indicate that over 74% of available seating remains unclaimed. Remarkably, some tickets are being offered at a mere €29.50, an extraordinarily low figure for a production of this magnitude. Yet despite this pricing strategy, audience interest remains minimal. Even premium-priced seating options are failing to attract purchasers. Meanwhile, on popular social media platforms, the narrative continues to evolve. A video clip from a prestigious fashion event displays Rachel receiving considerable positive engagement in the comments section, while her colleague, who deliberately abstained from controversy, inexplicably receives criticism. This apparent contradiction demands explanation. Some commentators attempted to attribute the underperformance of the fairy tale adaptation to her expression of political viewpoints. Interestingly, her co-performer, whom I shall refrain from explicitly identifying, similarly expressed political perspectives, yet received an invitation to the prestigious fashion event, although ultimately declining to attend. Nevertheless, Rachel finds herself associated with a theatrical production that appears to generate minimal public interest. The situation resembles an inversion of conventional social media dynamics. Seeking to verify these claims independently, I accessed the official reservation platform. The results were indeed striking. Consecutive rows of unoccupied seating were evident for every performance throughout June, July, and August. This situation doesn't reflect public unawareness of her performances, but rather suggests a deliberate decision among potential audience members to withhold their support. The issue has transcended the specific context of the fairy tale adaptation. It has assumed a personal dimension. The public appears to maintain lingering dissatisfaction regarding her critical commentary on the original narrative, in which she characterized a primary character as inappropriate and transformed what could have been an enjoyable reimagining into what some perceived as a didactic exercise. Her character reportedly requires no romantic partnership and isn't preoccupied with romantic aspirations. Instead, she aspires to leadership roles she believes herself capable of fulfilling. The production company apparently failed to anticipate the profound emotional significance this narrative holds for audiences throughout their developmental years and continuing into adulthood. Perhaps the 1937 cinematic rendering didn't require contemporary reinterpretation. The financial metrics warrant consideration. The fairy tale adaptation generated over $200 million in revenue. Nevertheless, it failed to achieve profitability. This apparent contradiction stems from reports indicating the production company invested approximately $600 million in production, additional filming, and promotional activities. Such financial underperformance carries significant implications. The circumstances were sufficiently concerning that the production company reportedly suspended development of another animated classic adaptation featuring extended hair. Industry sources suggested this project would have incorporated even more contemporary themes and political perspectives. The adaptation of the long-haired princess tale is officially proceeding, with Florence P. allegedly assuming the titular role. While she appears ideally suited for the character due to physical resemblance, audience reactions have been mixed. Comments range from predictions of inevitable disappointment to suggestions of complete abandonment. Many commentators object that Florence exceeds the appropriate age range for the character, who is canonically represented as 18 years old. Personally, I find such criticism unreasonable, considering Florence's youth, still in her 20s, and her capacity to convincingly portray the character. The current situation transcends a single theatrical production. It reveals broader industry dynamics. Rachel Zegler appears to be evolving into a cautionary narrative that industry professionals prefer not to address explicitly. Production studios made substantial investments in her career following just one significant role in a musical adaptation, apparently positioning her as their newest celebrated performer. However, audiences seemingly never fully embrace this narrative. Now, with the fairy tale adaptation's commercial underperformance and her theatrical engagement failing to attract substantial audiences, the message appears unambiguous. Audiences seek authentic talent rather than what some perceive as entitled behavior. The theater industry offers unforgiving metrics. One cannot selectively edit audience attendance or apply enhancing filters. When ticket sales remain minimal, performers face the reality of entertaining primarily vacant seating. The stark contrast is remarkable: how the same industry capable of selling out performances of Hamilton instantaneously struggles to fill even half the venue for Evita featuring Rachel Zegler. This doesn't represent merely an unsuccessful opening night or temporary downturn in attendance. The pattern persists consistently across multiple performances. The London Palladium's substantial 2,286-seat capacity remains largely unfilled regardless of pricing adjustments or promotional efforts. The circumstances evoke the image of Rachel Zegler viewing her own performance in isolation. Perhaps the most intriguing element involves preliminary ticket sales. Reports suggest the production had secured approximately $4 million in advance ticket purchases before even announcing Rachel as the lead performer. This raises questions about subsequent developments. If such substantial revenue materialized early, why do complete rows remain unoccupied? Audience members have begun noting this discrepancy, commenting on the apparent decline in energy following her casting announcement. This extends beyond mere statistics. It concerns audience connection. Currently, Rachel appears unable to inspire audience investment. Online discussion forums feature threads questioning whether the reported $4 million pre-sale figure represented a public relations strategy designed to create artificial excitement and generate publicity. The situation presents inconsistencies. If substantial early sales occurred, why does premium seating remain so readily available? Something appears incongruous with the reported narrative. Film studios can create impressions of success through promotional materials and sophisticated editing techniques. But theatrical performances reveal unfiltered reality. Rachel cannot simply attend premiere events, present a cultivated image for photographers, and claim audience alignment. Live performance exposes the reality. She performs before sparse audiences. Such circumstances resist public relations management. Such visible audience disengagement represents a professional embarrassment that even the most sophisticated public relations strategies struggle to mitigate. The remarkable aspect involves the studio's continued promotion of her career. Their approach increasingly resembles denial rather than confidence. Executives behave as though sufficient exposure across various performance mediums and talk, show appearances will inevitably generate audience appreciation. This represents a fundamental misunderstanding of audience psychology. One cannot artificially manufacture a dedicated fan base. Rachel isn't the first performer Hollywood attempted to rapidly elevate to prominence. Consider performers like Sam W. and Jay-Z. Substantial financial investment and significant roles didn't translate to audience connection. Charisma remains impossible to teach, and audience loyalty requires cultivation rather than procurement. The timing compounds the challenge. Rachel embarked on theatrical performance immediately following the fairy tale adaptation controversy. Her professional position was already precarious. Transitioning to live theater under such circumstances resembles attempting a high-wire performance without proper preparation or safety measures. Some observers reference Rachel's Broadway performance in A Romantic Tragedy, noting it reportedly generated $7 million in revenue. However, this preceded her association with controversial perspectives in contemporary Hollywood. Currently, when audiences see promotional materials featuring her name, the reaction isn't admiration, but apprehension regarding potentially didactic content disguised as entertainment. The unfortunate reality is that Rachel may possess genuine artistic capability. However, the current circumstances transcend mere talent considerations. They involve timing, public demeanor, and whether audiences desire her artistic contributions. Live theater provides nowhere to conceal these realities, no opportunity for second attempts. If audiences disengage, performers experience this reality nightly. That silence communicates volumes. This analysis doesn't represent advocacy for permanent professional exclusion. No one suggests Rachel lacks fundamental human decency. However, objective assessment reveals her public perception has been shaped more by interview statements than performance quality. Her communication style often suggests speaking at audiences rather than engaging with them, an approach perceived as cold, dismissive, and excessively instructional. Unsurprisingly, audiences increasingly disengage. An audience member shared a personal interaction experience with Rachel on social media, which unfortunately didn't improve public perception. The individual reported, "I encountered Rachel Zegler in New York following her Broadway performance. My impression of her certainly evolved after meeting her personally. Initially, I understood why people responded negatively to her comments about the fairy tale adaptation. I shared that reaction. However, in person, she demonstrated exceptional kindness. Beyond her interpersonal qualities, her talent is remarkable. Her vocal performance was truly outstanding, unlike anything I'd previously experienced. Her technical proficiency was extraordinary. Despite limited vocal performance opportunities in the production, her contribution represented my favorite aspect of the entire presentation. She possesses genuine talent and pleasant interpersonal qualities. I believe her communication style and self-presentation sometimes create unfavorable impressions, but this doesn't reflect negatively on her fundamental character. Despite such testimonials, the prevailing impression remains unfavorable, lacking the warmth and charm audiences hope to experience. Nevertheless, media outlets continue promoting narratives of her ascendant career trajectory. Award recipient, industry darling. Such characterizations increasingly resemble outdated public relations strategies attempting to address a situation beyond salvage. Her performance in the dystopian competition prequel was adequate, but objective assessment suggests the production's success derived primarily from the established franchise rather than her individual contribution. Audiences attended for the recognizable intellectual property, not specifically for Rachel. Nevertheless, industry executives continue supporting her as though committed beyond reconsideration. Acknowledging her potential misalignment with the fairy tale adaptation or audience disconnection would damage not merely Rachel's professional reputation, but that of the executives who championed her. These decision-makers now face scrutiny, Influential figures like renowned director S, who reportedly advocated for Rachel's casting in the fairy tale adaptation, have remained conspicuously silent. No public expressions of support or reputation management efforts have materialized. Their approach suggests hopes that the controversy will dissipate without further attention. The situation relates partly to her co-star highlighting both Rachel and the production company regarding production challenges. The colleague stated, "Collaborative effort represents the most crucial element in filmmaking. When working with characters like the antagonist and protagonist, one anticipates collaboration throughout the creative process. When attempting to create something exceptional, we lacked genuine teamwork. We encountered numerous setbacks throughout production. I found the experience extraordinarily draining. Performance requires your colleagues and creative team to demonstrate complete commitment and mutual support. Unfortunately, our experience failed to meet these expectations. Meanwhile, behind-the-scenes information suggests additional complications. Reports indicate her co-star experienced frustration not merely with public criticism, but also with unprofessional conduct during production. Sources suggest she has privately expressed concerns about unprofessional behavior throughout filming. While avoiding specific individual identification, the implications appear reasonably clear. This highlights a more fundamental issue. Rachel likely possesses vocal talent and appropriate appearance for her roles. However, she appears to lack the essential quality of audience connection. Success in the entertainment industry extends beyond line delivery. It requires establishing trust, demonstrating respect for audiences, maintaining humility, particularly when assuming beloved characters from audience childhoods. Instead, Rachel initially adopted a confrontational approach, seemingly mocking classic narratives, ridiculing audience favorites, and characterizing traditional fairy tales as problematic. Audiences retain such impressions. This explains why, despite her talent, her prominence feels artificial rather than organic, imposed rather than naturally developing. The situation isn't evolving authentically, but appears manufactured and promoted despite audience resistance. Perhaps most regrettably, she isn't the only individual bearing the consequences. Every performer, crew member, and creative contributor who invested their talents in the fairy tale adaptation now shares the association with commercial underperformance, largely attributable to one individual's public approach. This explains the industry's strategic adjustment. Rather than explicitly terminating professional relationships with Rachel, they appear to be gradually reducing her prominence. The approach resembles social disengagement, one moment representing the face of a major reimagined classic, the next experiencing diminished visibility. She may occasionally appear at award ceremonies or participate in limited press activities, but realistically, the momentum behind her career advancement appears to be decelerating rapidly. The primary conclusion remains: Rachel's career isn't irreparably damaged, but it has certainly been temporarily suspended. This resulted not from a single unsuccessful performance or talent deficiency, but from disregarding the entertainment industry's most fundamental principle. Audience preference ultimately determines success. Not media coverage, not executive decisions, but audience engagement. The industry provided exceptional opportunities, prominent roles, favorable press coverage, prestigious awards, but overlooked the necessity of authentic audience connection. Such connections cannot be fabricated or imposed. Audience investment cannot be manufactured. We're observing the consequences unfold through empty theater seats and extensive online commentary. Optimistically, she may internalize these experiences constructively. No one advocates for wasted talent. However, should she fail to recognize these indicators, others will inevitably emerge. Individuals who understand audience dynamics, demonstrate appreciation for enthusiasts, express passion for their craft, and prioritize storytelling over political or social commentary. Ultimately, audiences primarily seek entertainment rather than admonishment. The untold aspect of this narrative involves others quietly occupying the professional space Rachel formerly held. New performers with fewer controversies, greater audience appeal, and superior understanding of audience preferences are emerging. These developing talents aren't attempting to reimagine classics or generate controversy. They're focusing on their craft and allowing their performances to communicate their value. Meanwhile, Rachel's name increasingly appears in fewer cast announcements and more cautionary discussions, not celebrating successes, but warning of potential missteps. She's becoming the studied example of professional pitfalls in industry boardrooms. Executives are documenting these lessons, with emerging talents receiving explicit guidance to avoid similar situations. When audience support diminishes, the professional decline accelerates dramatically. Public perception evolves rapidly, and sympathy has limited duration. A single unfavorable headline multiplies exponentially. One interview segment gets edited, reshared, and criticized for extended periods. When your professional identity becomes more associated with controversy than talent, professional challenges inevitably follow. Despite the extensive discussion, Rachel hasn't taken the one action that might redirect the narrative, demonstrating genuine humility. No substantive apology, no reassessment of approach, merely continued red carpet appearances and subtle expressions suggesting everything remains satisfactory. This doesn't represent confidence. It suggests disconnection. In contemporary media landscapes, such approaches represent the quickest path to permanent audience disengagement. What perspectives do you hold on this situation? Was Rachel Zegler simply caught in unfortunate circumstances? Or did the industry excessively promote a performer audiences never particularly embraced?